everybody. My name is Brett Dunn, and joining me today is Laura Matini. We'd like to welcome you to Design Point's 2020 More is Possible event. First, big thank you to you for joining us. We know how hard it is to carve out time for this sort of thing, and we want to make sure that you get a lot of value from it. We've worked hard to put together this virtual meeting or virtual event that will deliver a tremendous amount of value with information and ideas that you can put into action now. Big shout out to the Design Point team for your hard work in putting this event together. Countless hours of preparation, meetings, practice, planning go into events like this. It might even surprise you that it takes a little more effort to put together a virtual meeting like this than a live event. So thank you again to the entire team. You guys and gals are amazing. We'd also like to take a moment to thank our partners, SolidWorks, DriveWorks, Markforged, and BigRep for your ongoing support. Your products are amazing, the partnerships are strong, and we thank you for that. So let's get this thing started. 2020, wow, what a year so far, right? The past 8 or 9 months have been quite a ride. The coronavirus took us all by surprise. And at the same time, we've seen political, economic, and social issues that we've never seen before. It's been a lot. We truly hope that you and yours are and continue to remain safe and healthy. During challenging times, it's easy to get laser focused on just getting through it. Believe me, we get it. And understandably, what can get overlooked during these times is opportunity. Now let's be clear. When our clients face tough times, Design Point faces tough times. And when our clients prosper, guess what? That's right, Design Point prospers. Make no mistake, this year has been a challenge. But as always, our Design Point DNA has given us the strength to not only pull through it, but to be better and stronger in the end. More on that in a few minutes. So let's take a moment and do a little self-assessment. Maybe even consider writing this down. Are you ready? I'm going to ask you to think of 5 actions that you've taken since COVID began to improve your business, your department, or even yourself. What have we done while things have slowed down a bit to improve? Now, let's be honest. When we're busy, we tell ourselves that, when things slow down a bit, then we can work on improving blank. Or right now, we're just so busy, we can't focus on anything except for getting our projects done and get the product out the door. Again, we get it, we understand. Or maybe you haven't slowed down at all. Maybe you're busier than ever. And I'll still ask the same question. Name 5 actions that you've taken to improve your business, your department, or even yourself during this time. So here's a new perspective. How many times have we heard someone say, it's time for change? Isn't it always time for change? If there's no change, aren't we basically standing still? And in the super competitive world that we live in, if we're standing still, aren't we really? These are not new concepts. I didn't author these. We've been talking about these sorts of things on LinkedIn, in articles online, and so forth for years. But I think in today's the world that we live in right now, these become really important for us to focus on. Steve Jobs, what a visionary, right? There are a ton of quotes from Steve, and one of my favorites is this one. Innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity, not a threat. So let's talk about change, and more importantly, the opportunities that are associated with change. How many of you are working from home, part or full time, that were not working from home prior to COVID? Is there an opportunity there for you? Maybe an opportunity to drive less, an opportunity to get more work done, an opportunity to spend more time with your family. Is there an opportunity in there, in that change for your employer? Maybe to save on rent, save on square footage, maybe to build stronger collaboration through tools that are available today. The point is, we should look for the opportunities that are associated with these changes. How about your internal meetings and team collaboration? How has that changed? Is there an opportunity to improve those things? Maybe you're concerned about Dassault and SolidWorks and the changes around the tools that you've been using for years and have grown accustomed to. Is there room for improvement within those tools and how you use them to make them better? Do you think we'll ever go back to exactly the way that things were prior to COVID? I'll be bold and say, let's hope not. The pandemic has forced us to change, and some of that change has been needed for a very long time. Some of the change has been good. Wouldn't you agree? It's time to embrace change and find the opportunity within it. Today, our goal is to help you do just that. Another great quote, and one with real relevance today, is this quote from Plato: "Necessity, the mother of invention." No truer words have been spoken, right? So let's think about that for a moment. What needs have become evident during COVID? Talk about some examples here. How about the need for PPE? That need was there, but there was no light shining on it until COVID. And that need created invention. We had to invent ways to design, manufacture, distribute the PPE, right? And for those of us who had access to additive manufacturing, 3D printers, right? We found ways to very quickly develop systems and processes that didn't exist prior to COVID. It was amazing. How about the need for better, more robust connections to work from home, right? The need for better tools for remote meetings, the need for people to learn how to use those tools at a higher level than we've had to before, right? How about the need for large supplies of toilet paper? You get the point. COVID has redefined how we school our children, how we travel, how we communicate, how we collaborate. Shoot, some of my friends had to rethink how they play Dungeons and Dragons, but I digress. Give this some thought. During these difficult and challenging times, did we do only what was necessary to get by? Or did we do all that we could to strengthen our company? Hindsight is 2020. Remember, it's not too late. Opportunity is still there. So I swiped this graphic from CMC Co's website because I love it. And it illustrates exactly what we did here at Design Point over the last 9 months. Pivot, don't pause. We quickly realized that our clients needed us now more than ever, but you needed us in a different way than in the past. It was time for us to rethink everything. So we pivoted nearly every day for the first few months. We had daily calls for ideation. We had semi-weekly virtual company-wide meetings to keep communication open and collaboration and culture at an all-time high. And as a result, we saw and heard with much greater clarity what our clients, you, really needed from us. And we pivoted again. At the same time, we recognized that SolidWorks has all of this new technology that our clients really could benefit from, especially now. And we pivoted again. By June, we had restructured our company to provide better focus internally, to build even stronger subject matter expertise, especially around the new cloud-based option SolidWorks. And we transitioned our company to growth advisory for manufacturing companies, all in the name of aligning with what our clients truly need. That's what partners do, right? Carpe Diem. Carpe Diem means seize the day or seize the moment. And the question is, did we? Maybe more importantly today, will we? So ask yourself, are you any more efficient today than you were, say, in January of 2020? Have you leveled up your skills? Have you improved your internal processes? Have you even audited those internal processes to figure out where you might even start? We began our journey back in January of 2017, and we're still on it. And COVID threw us a massive curveball, just like everybody else. And we were positioned for rapid response. Pivot, don't pause. Carpe Diem. All right, so now it's October, and we're still dealing with COVID. Business may still be down, right? There may still be some uncertainty about what to do next and how long will this last. Okay, we understand, we're in the same boat. So what do we do? Well, as growth advisors, let's start with what we won't do. What we won't do is wait to act. What we won't do is wait and see what happens. We won't pause, we'll pivot. We will learn, plan, collaborate, and we will seize the day. Carpe Diem. All right. So humor me for a moment, okay? And let's cast a vision together. We're on bicycles, riding on a beautiful sunny day, air temperature 75 degrees, humidity is low, there's a light breeze. It's pretty perfect. Right now, the road is relatively flat where we are, and we're cruising right along, right? We've got a good cadence going. And as we look ahead, we see a hill, and it's a big hill. In fact, it's a mountain. Now, before we visualize what we'll do next, let's jump out of that vision for a moment. Let's talk about what we won't do, right? We see the hill ahead or the mountain ahead. Let's talk about what we won't do. Any thoughts on that? Well, what we won't do is stop pedaling and coast. You can predict with 100% accuracy what will happen if we try to coast up this hill, and the outcome won't be good, right? So let's get back to that vision, right? We're back on the bicycles, we're pedaling, we look ahead, we see the mountain, and we commit. We've got this, right? So what do? We stand up, right? We downshift a gear, maybe even two, and we start pedaling even harder. The last thing we want to do is get halfway up this hill and then shift. So we power into that hill, carry us up as far as we can go until we get to that moment where we have to shift, and we do that to get over the peak. Isn't that what we would do, right? So I ask you now, in our businesses, have we downshifted? Have we stood up and grabbed those bars and committed to getting over this hill? What have we done to gain speed and gain momentum to power us through this? Who do you think is going to come out the other end of this stronger and better? Do you think your competitors are standing still? That's the point of this exercise, is to think about what we can do to downshift, to get more speed and momentum, to power out of this situation. And we can do it together. So let's assume for a moment that we agree. Waiting's not the answer. Coasting up the hill, it just won't work, right? Wait and see will only put us further behind. We want to take action. We want to improve. Where and how do we start? So a good place to start is to determine and then discuss what mode you're in. And what mode do you intend to stay in? So there are 5 modes that we find companies typically in. The first one we call startup mode. Now there's some of you in the audience, of course, that are in this mode. A young company, probably working on a shoestring budget. You might not even have product to market yet. But this is a mode that some companies will fall in. The next mode is growth mode, right? So now you're probably in a mode where it's tough to keep up, right? You're focused on top line revenue, growing the business, getting your product to market, at volume. And that's a particular mode that some of you will fall in. The next mode is profit improvement mode. Now, profit improvement mode typically follows growth mode. Maybe you've been in growth mode for a while. Now it's put pressure on the profitability of the company, and you're seeking ways to improve profit, okay? The next section here is cost cutting and savings mode. It's typically the more, forgive me, but dire end of the previous mode, right? Where we've tried to improve profits. Now it's getting a little bit more critical. We're dealing with maybe sales are off or down, and we're trying to figure out how to find hard cost savings. There's nothing to, there's no judgment here. These are modes that all businesses will go through in some period of time, right? So it's important to identify where we really are and then identify where we want to go. And then the final mode is in a declining mode, right? Sales are really off. We're uncertain about the future. We're really not sure what to do next. So the process here, again, is to figure out what mode you're currently in and what mode we want to drive towards. It's a good starting point. So as we've described, Design Point has transformed over the years to a growth advisory firm for manufacturing companies. So why the shift and why are we talking about this transition now? Well, let's start with the O and the T from a SWOT analysis. So we're all familiar with a SWOT analysis, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Again, we're going to focus on opportunities and threats. So over on the opportunity side, it's just a few examples. There are many, okay? So the three examples I'd like to discuss today: technology shifts. Whenever there's a shift in technology, some companies will find an opportunity to leverage that change into efficiency gains, cost cutting, just better collaboration, things like that. Okay, it's an opportunity. It's the change that offers opportunity. Those who are able to leverage that can often leapfrog the competition. We spoke just a moment ago about not everybody is going to downshift and power up that hill, right? If we make a choice to pivot, not pause, and not wait, and we choose to go into that hill and try to get ahead of our competitors, we have an opportunity to leapfrog our competition. Okay. There's also an opportunity potentially in all of this change to reduce costs and improve profit, right? We can talk more about this specifics later. On the threat side, somewhat related to some of the opportunities, but on the threat side, we see a lot of pressure on profits, for example, right? And some of us are trying to do more with less. Perhaps our team has been downsized, as an example. And so not only are we trying to do more with less, but we may have had a loss of talent and experience on the team. Okay, so these could be viewed as a threat. Our job is to identify these threats and help find the opportunities to build the plan to execute against them and drive out of this. Okay, so that's what we would do together with you. We'd identify your opportunities and threats, develop plans both short and long term to drive innovation, efficiency, production, and ultimately profits. So as we've transitioned to growth advisory, we've developed very simple but effective tools to help identify and illustrate points. And one of those tools that we reach for, typically early in an engagement with our clients, is what is the value of 1% in your organization? Okay, so again, normally this tool we would share with you as part of a growth advisory engagement, but let's have some fun. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to grab a calculator or your phone. You're going to need it in just a minute. So as growth advisors, we understand that moving the needle in the positive direction can make a measurable impact. We've developed a simple way to understand the impact of every 1% of efficiency gain, again, within your organization. Before we go through an example of this, I'd ask you to consider three questions. And a couple of these questions have multiple parts, so bear with me. Question number one, do you complete an annual or semi-annual audit or evaluation of your internal systems and processes for potential improvements? If the answer to that is no, we don't do an annual or semi-annual evaluation, how many years has it been since you've done this? A purposeful evaluation of your internal systems. Question number two, when you decide to go through an exercise like this, do you have a proven process to A, identify areas for improvement, B, architect a solution or solutions, and C, execute a plan with the proper KPIs? And then the final question is related to the slide. Do you know the value of every 1% of improvement? All right, so let's jump into this. I've got a quick exercise here. Again, now's time to grab your calculator, and I'd ask you to think about your particular situation and plug in your own numbers, okay? We're going to walk through this simple example, and keep in mind that this tool is simplified by design. This is not in any way meant to be a full-on ROI calculator. We simply want to understand directionally what the value of 1% means to your company. Okay, let's start with, do you agree that the potential for improvement in your company is greater than 0? let's say it's safe to assume we'll all agree that it's greater than 0. Then let's start with what is 1% worth, okay? So in our example, we're looking at a small to medium-sized manufacturing company that has 8 SolidWorks users. They're using that software on average 6 hours a day, okay? Some are using it more, some are using it less. The average in this example is 6, okay? 5 days a week. And we're accounting for 45 weeks a year, not 52, right? There's some vacation, there's some holidays, there's some sick days. It's probably more than 45, but again, this isn't meant to be rocket science. Please don't overthink this. We're looking for a directional number, a conservative directional number that we all understand and believe. This is really critical. So be conservative, okay? Again, 8 users, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, 45 weeks per year. In this example, we're using $75 an hour for a fully burdened rate, okay? Now let's talk about that just for a moment. When we say fully burdened, we're not saying that the engineers or designers are being paid $75 an hour. This is a fully burdened rate, right? Salary, benefits, employment taxes, hardware, software, all the things that roll into a fully burdened rate. Now, for your knowledge, if you're not familiar, in our area, Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, we see fully burdened rates from about as low as about $60 an hour to a high of about 120. So we're on the conservative end of that scale at 75. All right, so we take our calculators, we do 8 users times 6 hours a day, times 5 days a week, times 45 weeks per year, times $75 an hour. And what we get from that is $810,000 a year. Now, again, I just want to reinforce this. We're not accounting for every minute of every day for all of these users. It was 6 hours a day, not 8. It was 45 weeks a year, not 52. It was $75 an hour, not 100, okay? We're trying to come up with a conservative number for a fully burdened cost to the company, accounting for, in this case, the SolidWorks users only, okay? Hold that thought. So now, when we go back to the question, what is 1% worth? We know in this example, it's worth $8,100 per year. Now, what do we do with this information? Okay, why would we even go through this exercise? Well, I'm glad that you asked. So now that we have an understanding of what the value of 1% is to our company, it puts everything into perspective. I'm going to give you an example. So what if we decided through a growth advisory engagement that one of the things we wanted to do is take those 8 users and level them up? Now, in this example, let's assume for a moment that all of these users have been using SolidWorks for 5 to 10 years. They're all at least very good users, maybe excellent users, okay? But there's still room for improvement. Maybe because most of those users haven't been through formal SolidWorks training for 5 to 10 years, okay? So there's an opportunity there. Remember, we're looking to move this needle a little bit, okay? This needle, and keep in mind, we try to envision a dashboard with multiple gauges and multiple needles. If we move this one, this training, this level up program, we move that by a couple of percentage points, and then we focus on other areas, collectively it adds up to something significant, right? So let's go back to the example. We decide we're going to do a level up program for this group of 8 users, right? And let's say you work with Design Point, we put a plan together, there's some advanced training, some of it's on site, whatever we need to do, right? And the proposal comes back and it's $16,000 for this level up training program. Without the perspective of the value of 1%, your response might be something along the lines of, oh, that's a lot of money. And it is. We're not trivializing that. It is. But as it relates to every 1% of improvement, our response will be 2. We need a 2% or greater improvement in efficiency gains, right, for that group of 8 people, for the 6 hours a day that they use the software and the 45 weeks per year, right? We need 2% to justify that investment. Again, the tool gives us that perspective. So that's why we use very simple tools like this. And again, I'll say it one more time. It's a tool, nothing more, but it gives us clarity and helps companies recognize how best to invest your money to drive efficiency, production, and profits. Okay, so let's move on. On this slide, I have a very simple graph that I want to walk you through. And Again, much of what we do is simplified because it's really easy to understand. It's really easy to visualize what it means and gives us clarity on what to do next. All right, so on the left, of course, we have performance. 100% down to 25, well, down to 0 ultimately in time. Now, by design, time is not identified here. This could be weeks, months, quarters, years, it doesn't matter. You'll see why in a moment. When everything is running perfectly, this green line represents 100% of our capacity, right? Every person is working, every machine is operating, there are no glitches. This is our company at 100%. But real life probably looks something more like this, unfortunately. And so what you're seeing here is every one of these dips down from the green line is representing some event. Someone got sick, a machine stopped working, there was a supply chain issue, somebody left the company, COVID hit, right, and really knocked us back, and then we got back on our feet. But the point here is that our normal operating condition, because of all of these peaks and valleys, most of which we don't have control over, by the way, the net result is that our operating condition is somewhere in this 80 to 90% range, right? On average, we're not operating at 100% of our capacity because of all of these things that are out of our control, okay? So what can we do about it? Well, let me show you what the to-be state might look like. This blue line represents the story that we're trying to share with you. A couple of things to note. This blue line is not up here in the stratosphere somewhere. We're not suggesting that if you engage with us in a growth advisory engagement, that magically we're going to figure out how to get you to operate at 200% of your current state. That's not the message at all. Remember, a dashboard with multiple gauges, each moving the needle in the right direction. What that does for us is a couple of things, okay? First, note that the blue line literally is a copy of the red line, but it's been flattened, right? The peaks aren't as high, the valleys aren't as low. We've flattened it. We've done that by focusing on very specific areas where there's room for improvement related to efficiency. When we streamline our processes, we remove, right? We flatten the curve. We remove the peaks and valleys to some degree. What it doesn't do is nothing we can do at Design Point is going to prevent people from getting sick. Nothing we can do at Design Point is going to prevent people from leaving or machines failing or pandemics starting, right? But this positions us so that our normal operating conditions are we're running at a rate on most days that was greater than our previous 100%. That's the picture we're trying to paint. That's the story we're trying to tell, okay? So again, this just gives us a way to visualize that. All right, is your head spinning yet? Mine is, so let's regroup. We agreed that change equals opportunity, and that necessity is the mother of invention. COVID has delivered lots of change and new need to the table that we didn't have before. And the question is, are we capitalizing on all of the opportunity? So we discussed how we would try to pivot, not pause, and how we need to pedal harder to climb the big hill of recovery. We took a moment to understand what mode we're in and what mode we want to drive towards. And now we understand the value of what just 1% improvement means to our company. Where do we go from here? Well, what we need is a roadmap. Have you created a 3-year roadmap for your company before? Could you use a partner to do that? This is what growth advisory is all about. We've described how we got here, why we're doing this now. We're a trusted partner with the experience of 1,000 careers, and we're here to help. When you grow, we grow. When you succeed, we succeed. It's as simple as that. So let's go into today with open minds, a hunger for learning, and a thirst for improvement. Remember, pivot, don't pause. Understand your 1%. Engage with us as a trusted partner. Let's create a roadmap together. Seize the day. Opportunities like this don't come around very often for you to learn as much as you can learn today. Make the most of it. Carpe Diem. More is possible, maybe now more than ever before, as we accelerate out of this pandemic. Our partnership has never been more important. So let's go out there and unleash our full potential. Thank you very much. That's all I have for you, and we'll check to see if we have any questions or comments. Thank you.
Yeah, Brett, thank you so much. We have a lot to think about. So hello, everybody attending. I'm going to hop over to the Zoom webinar chat and direct a message to all panelists and attendees. I'm typing hello into the chat. Hopefully you can see that pop up in the window. And if anyone has any questions for Brett related to Growth Advisory, anything that he has just talked about, please feel free to type it into the chat. So we'll hold on for a few minutes to see if there's anything there. And Brett, while we're waiting for some questions, can you think of, oh, great job, Brett. Thank you so much. Can you think of anything that, anything else you would want to impart to the group while we're waiting for some questions to be typed in?
I appreciate that, Laura. Nothing really comes to mind. I mean, I hope that the message is clear, right? We have an opportunity to connect today virtually, but connect and learn a lot. And, just what you heard, there's so much opportunity right now that we want to make sure we're capitalizing on it. So hopefully we can do that. You have any other questions or comments?
Yes, so we have a question from Chris Lorita. What are some typical 1% gains that you have implemented in companies recently?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll try to keep it short. The training example is an easy one to reach for because, again, everybody that uses SolidWorks, we like to think everybody's at least good, maybe even great. But on this journey from good to great or even better, it's important to understand what that 1% means. And the main thing around the training that's interesting is that the people that use that software typically use it a large number of hours per day, right? So the math behind it supports a lot of value related to 1%. Other areas related to 1% is if you really take a close look at your internal processes, you'll find these, for lack of a better description, bottlenecks. Another common bottleneck we see is delays related to things like approvals or workflow related kinds of bottlenecks, like engineering change orders, for example. We've been in companies where we've identified that there's a bottleneck where there could be as much as, in one case, there was, I think, a 7 or 8 day average on a turnaround time related to an ECO. And when we looked at that, it was purely because it was a manual paper-based methodology that it just made it easy for that to happen, right? A piece of paper sitting on somebody's desk was not prompting them to get to it faster. And they had no way to know how many days or hours that ECO was stuck on that person's desk. And in some cases, that person was on vacation or traveling for business and that sort of thing. And things were stacking up. So, these engagements allow us to dig in and understand where those bottlenecks are with your help, and then come up with systems and processes to work around them.
Thank you. We have another question from Tom G. Tom asks, does this apply to a one-person freelancer as well as a typical corporation?
Sure, great question. Of course, it's all about scale, right? So mathematically, the numbers look bigger when you look at a larger organization with more users, but 1% is 1%, right? And so that 1% for a small, single owner kind of situation, we still want to find those areas where there's room for improvement, because again, your business will scale. So if we get control over those areas where there's room for improvement now, it actually helps with the scalability of your business and more profitable growth.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions while we have Brett on the line? Well, that question was typed in a couple of minutes ago. So if no one has any additional questions, then Brett, any other closing thoughts before we check out?
No, thanks again, everybody. And through this virtual event, you have the ability to connect with any of us at Design Point directly. So if you have questions that you'd like to run by me, one-on-one, feel free to do that. Send me a DM, as they say. Laura, was there another?
Yes, we had one other. are there any examples of COVID-related opportunities that you can share?
Let's see, COVID related. Yeah, so most of the COVID related opportunities are around the work from home scenarios that many companies are in. What we have found is that most companies did a pretty good job of getting VPN set up very quickly so that people could work remotely and get most of their job done. But what's happening is, because we weren't ready for this and we didn't have these systems and processes built already, there's still a gap with respect to like project management and visibility related to how effective people are in this remote situation, and how to make sure people continue to, perform at their highest level. So there are tools available, for those of you who don't know, some of them will be presented today, that give us this added visibility that we need so that all of us can communicate better remotely, collaborate, and I mean everything from typical chat style kind of solutions to full design reviews and markup and that sort of thing, avoiding some of the older tools like email where things get lost and people miss them, that sort of thing. So COVID has brought this need for more robust solutions around this remote connectivity and collaboration and communication. Again, you're going to hear a lot about that stuff today, not specifically due to COVID, but that these tools are available and it's timely coming from SolidWorks.
Thank you.
Laura, you actually missed another question that came in just before that one. Somebody asked, how do you handle technological deficiencies that are beyond your own experience base?
Well, that's a great question, and I appreciate you saying that. One of the lines that I said today was that we have the experience of 1,000 careers, and I did that a little bit for effect, and I'm hoping somebody calls me out on it at some point and asks, what do you mean by that? So let me share this. When we say things like that, here's what we mean. Typically, naturally in the world, everybody has their combination of experiences, right? We're all a result of the experiences that we've had in our life. And typically, when you think about the career of an engineer or an engineering manager or a VP of engineering, doesn't matter. Typically through that career, most people will only see major changes, technological shifts, once or twice in their career, right? So let's pick on an engineering manager. Engineering manager in their career might work for 2 or 3 companies, and through that process might do 1 or 2 major like CAD shifts from 2D to 3D, maybe implement an ERP system once or twice, that sort of thing. All of that gets amplified and accelerated when you're a reseller like us, because that's all we do. All we do is engage with 100 clients at a time across our whole team, right, with solving problems and helping them understand new technology that is beyond their own experience. It's not beyond our experience. We've done PDM implementations literally a couple of 100 times. We've done ERP connectivity dozens of times. So that's what we mean by collectively having the experience of 1,000 careers. No one person could, including me, by the way, who's been doing this for 20 years, no one person could have all of the necessary experience. But here at Design Point, it really adds up to a lot of experience to help you understand what others have done before you. And it's also our job. You remember one of the things I said was we pivoted, we didn't pause. We recognized we needed to accelerate our understanding of these new cloud-based tools from SolidWorks so that we could help you understand them and figure out what works best for you. Sorry, that was kind of long.
No. And Lori, I'm having a little bit of lag on the chat. Can you see any others that I might have missed?
No, and it's not your fault. I think that one was submitted as a Q&A. So 2 different ways for people to talk. We're all good. I think that just about covers it.
Good. All right. Again, thank you, everybody. Let's make it a great day. We really appreciate you carving out time, and we'd love to hear your feedback at the end. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.